It's a serious situation, and it's gotten more serious as time has gone by. We deliberately avoided saying anything about it, writing anything about it at PFT until we heard from Urban Meyer. His comments from yesterday, we played some of them, reacted to them. I feel like this snowball keeps growing as it rolls down the hill. Clearly, the Jaguars aren't comfortable with, number one, the incident, number two, the reception that Urban Meyer has gotten in the locker room. Mike Silver, formerly of NFL Network, now with the Washington football team. And some in the league were like, boy, it's odd that Mike Silver, who's working for the Washington football team, is reporting about a Jaguars matter. There's some quality to that makes people uncomfortable in league circles. Regardless, he had quotes from an unnamed Jacksonville player that made it clear there's a crisis in the locker room. They don't have the appropriate faith in their head coach, and it comes from the bottom and it comes from the top. The statement today from Shad Khan, the owner of the team: I've addressed this matter with Urban Meyer. Specifics of our conversation will be held in confidence. What I will say is his conduct last weekend was inexcusable. I appreciate Urban's remorse, which I believe is sincere. Now he must regain our trust and respect. That will require a personal commitment from Urban to everyone who supports, represents, or plays for our team. I am confident he will deliver. Again, that was a statement issued late this morning at a time when there were reports and rumblings that maybe the Jaguars were looking to move on from him. I don't think this is over, Charean. I don't think it's over. It's too ominous. It feels too fluid. And I feel like there are more steps before we get to the end of this chapter in Urban Meyer's tenure as coach of the Jaguars.
I have so many questions, and there's so many layers to this thing. So let me start with this. First of all, if you're the owner of the Jaguars, or if you're a PR person, whatever, do you have him release a statement? And if so, what is the meaning of trust and respect? Is he talking about the trust and respect in the locker room? He's done nothing illegal. Let's make that clear. There's been nothing illegal here. I just have questions about how this whole thing was handled. And would it have gone away if they don't address it publicly? I guess let's start there.
Well, and that's a great question, because we weren't going to address it at all until the team or Urban Meyer did. Now, others did not follow that same approach, and that's their prerogative. But let's say Urban Meyer shows up at the press conference yesterday and someone asks, can you comment on the incident that developed over the weekend? And Urban Meyer says something along the lines of, that's really not a football-related matter. That's a personal matter. I'm handling that. I'm only here to talk about football issues. Can we just do that? Kind of the way that a Bill Belichick would do something like that. Not that he's ever going to put himself in that position.
Right.
The problem is, by the time Urban meets with the media, Charean, he's already dealt with it internally. Like, what do you do when you show up for work on Monday, when you did not return with the team to Jacksonville after a loss that he called devastating and heartbreaking? He hung around in Ohio. And I know the players get a mini-bye after a Thursday night game. The coaches don't. You think Bill Belichick takes a couple of days off after a Thursday night game and kicks around and relaxes and goes to Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard or wherever he has property? No. He's busting his ass getting ready for the next game. It's a gift. It's an opportunity to get a head start on your next opponent. It's an advantage that is baked into the schedule. Disadvantage, you got to play Thursday. Advantage, you get a few extra days to get ready for your next game. Take full advantage of them. So you take that and you throw on top of it him putting himself in a position where there's zero self-awareness. There's zero exercise of prudence, judgment, etc., because you're posing for photos and Big Brother is always watching. So I don't know that there was any other way this could have gone once he shows up for work. It's one thing for us to say it's not relevant until the team or Meyer says something. In hindsight, it was probably a little naive for me to think that nothing was ever going to come of it. Maybe deep down I sensed it would, and we would just wait until then to address it. But I don't think, when you throw in the fact that he basically was playing hooky from his job, either with or without permission from whoever, I think that's what makes this a bigger deal, because they're trying to win games. They are facing only the third 20-game losing streak in NFL history. They lose to the Titans on Sunday. They join the Cardinals of Chicago, 1942-45, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 76-77, as the only teams to lose 20 in a row. And he's taking a few days off and hanging out in Ohio and not grinding the way every other NFL coach does. I think that is what really made this a bigger deal. It's not a question of morals or ethics or criminality. And obviously, he did nothing illegal. It's a question of judgment, and it's a question of work ethic, and it's a question of, are you really committed to this job that you have? Because if you were, you wouldn't have been hanging out in a bar in Ohio. You'd have been either getting some rest so you could bust your ass the next day, or you'd be busting your ass that night.
Grinding was an interesting word that you used there, Mike, but he was not at the
not intended.
He was not at the team facility. And I don't know if that's my biggest problem with this. Look, I don't care what Urban Meyer does in his free time. I don't. He didn't do anything illegal. There's nothing to talk about that there. The problem I have with it, I don't know if people know how unusual this is, that he didn't take the team plane back with the team. It doesn't happen. And I was trying to think of some instance when a coach got on the plane with Jerry Jones and didn't take the team plane back or something along those. It never happens. Usually on those team planes, the coach sits up with the quarterback or other players or somebody, and they watch film of the game that just happened, or they start preparing for the next game. In this case, it was a Thursday night game, so there was no reason to start preparing for the next team, but you could have watched film with your other coaches or your quarterback or whoever it is while the team plane's going back to Jacksonville. This is unusual. It's out of the ordinary. So if you're Urban Meyer, what do you tell your assistant coaches? Do you tell them, hey, take the weekend off? Do you tell them, hey, be in the team facility working while I'm in Ohio? I'll just do my work from there. I'm not sure what he tells his assistant coach. And that, to me, when we're talking about a loss of trust and respect, that to me is it. How committed are you to this job? That's my whole problem with this whole thing. The fact that he didn't fly back with the team and didn't get back to work. Yes, you can work remotely, but it's not the same thing as being in the team facility with those assistant coaches working the entire weekend when you're trying not to lose, as a franchise, 20 consecutive games, or as a coach, your first 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way. And we've talked about their losing streak, and he can say the first 15 aren't on me. But the first 15 are on the organization. And it is the Jacksonville Jaguars that are staring down the barrel of 20 straight losses. It doesn't matter that Urban Meyer can wash his hands of the first 15, and he's only responsible for the last 4. He should be doing everything in his power to avoid that 20th loss in a row. And hanging around Ohio saying, we're going to spend time with the grandkids, when instead you're going out and you're doing I think plain and simple, he likes being the king of Ohio, and he still is. He's got the Ohio State logo on his quarter zip, and he's still Urban Meyer, coach of the Ohio State University football team, and it hasn't been as good since he left as it was when he was there. Well, I don't know if it has or hasn't. I haven't paid all that close attention to it, but the bottom line is he's beloved there. So he's going out and he's soaking some of it in. He feels entitled to go soak in some of the fruits of his past labors because his current labors aren't lending him any fruit at all. He stinks now. So he's getting a little whiff of what it used to be like before he goes back to Florida, to a level of football where it's more difficult, where his talent gap is non-existent, and where he can't buy a win, where his team just blew a 14-point lead at halftime. So I'm not saying that I condone it. I understand why he wanted to hang around, but it's stupid. It's stupid on multiple levels. You go back with your team. You keep working shoulder to shoulder and elbow to elbow, burning the midnight oil with your staff to try to get better. He said on Friday, I don't know where he did the press conference from. I guess he just did it by phone. I don't know. But he said on Friday that they're going to look at everything. They're going to look at halftime adjustments. They're going to look at this. Well, when? When? Perfect chance to look at everything. 4 games down. And you have 3 extra days to get ready for your next game. Perfect chance to do a full inventory of everything going on in the team. And making adjustments on the fly. Instead, he's hanging out in Ohio. And that's just what, to me, makes this, the more I think about it, the more time goes by, it is stupid to the point of inexcusable. It really is inexcusable. The conduct was inexcusable, not the actual behavior, but I think the whole thing. I think that's really what Shad Khan's saying. It's not just that he was out being photographed in a compromising situation in a way that understandably creates problems with his family. It's this guy should have been working. Like every other NFL coach is making $10, $15 million a year. I don't know what he's making, but whatever he's making, he's getting paid to work, not paid to hang out in Ohio and revisit the glory days of when he was a coach of a team that was actually good.
And that's the whole point, and that's my whole point of this thing, Mike, and where I think it goes off the rails. And remember, this is a guy that taught a character and leadership class at Ohio State. I don't care about the character part of it. I do care about the leadership part of it, and you do question whether he's lost that locker room and the leadership part of this, because I imagine most of those players...
But you can't lead without character.
That is a great point. That's a great point. And he's created a distraction, just as Chris Doyle did when Urban Meyer hired him, and Urban Meyer fired him because he said Chris Doyle was a distraction. Well, this is now a distraction. I don't give the Jaguars, they probably didn't have a chance anyway. I give them a less than 0 chance to win this week. But he did not show leadership, and I'll be interested to see what happens in the next 2 weeks. He's there this week. He's not going anywhere probably this week. But in 2 weeks, Mike, they have their bye week. Does something happen that week? They say they lose the next 2. Does something happen 2 weeks from now during their bye week?
And look, we got a game of high-stakes poker going on now, and we need to be realistic about it. Mike Lombardi reported some stuff today about things going on behind closed doors in Jacksonville, and he gave credence to the idea that the Jaguars were scouring over the contract, looking for a way to fire Urban Meyer for cause and not pay him the balance of his contract. That's the key. And I heard from 3 different people immediately. Mike Lombardi and Trent Baalke, the GM of the team, are very close. I heard it from 3 different people unsolicited in the league. They're very close, and the suspicion is Baalke's the one that was telling Lombardi these things. So it's accurate. I don't care that Baalke and Lombardi are talking. People talk all the time. But it's accurate that that's what was going on. So when Shad Khan issues that statement, I think that the language that he chose, he must regain our trust and respect, meaning he has lost our trust and respect.
That's right.
It will require a personal commitment to everyone who supports, represents, or plays for our team. I think that Khan is trying to contribute to the avalanche so that Meyer does in Jacksonville what he did in Gainesville and what he did in Columbus. Taps out and walks away. Because if he does, you don't have to pay him. That's the multi-million-dollar question here. However many years are on the contract, he's only 4 games into it. If you fire him and you don't have cause, you have to pay him all of it. If he quits, you pay him none of it. And I think that Khan wants to see if he can get this guy to quit. That's just speculation on my part, but I think it's informed, and it's with an understanding we're talking about billion-dollar businesses here with a lot at stake on these contracts. And the other possibility, Charean, they could just work out a mutual parting where he gets half of what he's due, and he moves on. And that's something that doesn't get done like that. It takes a few days, maybe a couple of weeks. I don't think this is over. I really don't think this is over. And if you've lost the locker room, how can you continue? If you've lost the faith of the owner, how can you continue? What is Urban Meyer going to do at this point to humble himself and rebuild his reputation when he has blown it to smithereens so quickly in Jacksonville? Given what I would suspect the level of pride and ego is that he possesses, I think the only thing that he will feel comfortable doing is getting the hell out of Dodge.
At some point we did the draft for coaches, and I can't remember what the thing was. If he doesn't last this season, if he resigns at some point, or they work out an agreement, or he gets fired, or whatever the case may be, this will be a bigger debacle than Bobby Petrino, and I never, ever thought I would see anything worse than that. This could be worse than that, Mike.
Yeah, and it was Petrino who disappeared kind of in the middle of the night in December of a disastrous 2007 season that was undermined by the Mike Vick dogfighting controversy. So at least Petrino could say he didn't make the biggest part of the mess he had to deal with. He took that job thinking he was going to have Mike Vick, and then Mike Vick's gone. But still, he quit and walked away, and I remember Warwick Dunn, who I've never heard say a bad thing about anyone, just lambasting Petrino on the way out the door. This ends up being a bigger debacle. Even now, even if he makes it through the year, I mean, look, we've had the Tom Brady return to Foxborough. It's done. It's over. There's nothing to talk about there because Urban Meyer has filled the void with what happened over the weekend, and this is not the kind of attention the Jaguars want. The only thing it distracts from is their 19-game losing streak going on 20, which probably is inevitable this weekend. So everybody thinks that the next college coach hired is going to be Jimmy Johnson, and there was so much talk about how Meyer's close with Jimmy Johnson, and everybody's trying to draw parallels, and I think people in the media try to set themselves up so they have access when the guy does become Jimmy Johnson, if he does. And if he doesn't, oh, well, we'll just move on to the next guy who becomes an NFL coach coming out of college. But if Johnson's at this end and Petrino's at this end, Meyer's right there with Petrino, and he's possibly going to be the new polar opposite of Jimmy Johnson by the time this is all said and done.
Yeah, we may never see another college coach get an opportunity. I never say never, but I'm just saying they haven't worked out very well aside from Jimmy Johnson.
Matt Rule's doing well.
Matt Rule's doing okay. I was just going to go there. He's having a successful season this season. But, you start to have second thoughts about successful coaches when they come in, whether it's a Lou Holtz or a Nick Saban or whoever have had success in college football and couldn't reproduce it in the NFL. And we've seen that way too many times, Mike.
But at the same time, are we really surprised that this happened? Given his history, given all the things that went on in Gainesville and Columbus, the things we know about, the things we don't know about, the way he left both places, and it was a lot of eye rolling and shoulder shrugging, and is he really being honest about this stuff? And I decided to take a wait-and-see approach because I don't cover college football nearly closely enough to understand everything. But I picked up enough indirectly to wonder what the big deal is. And I remember thinking that back in January. What's the big deal? Why is no one else trying to hire Urban Meyer? Why isn't Chris Spielman trying to hire Urban Meyer? Now, I know that the whole Michigan thing would have made it hard for Urban Meyer to be welcomed up there, but Spielman's an Ohio State guy. They never even mentioned his name. There was never another team. Of all the teams looking for coaches in this latest hiring cycle, the Jaguars were the only ones that wanted him. Shad Khan decided he was going to roll the dice on something different, and it's turned out craps. And the question is, at what point do you take your chips and go back home? And is it now? Is it later? The question is, how many chips is it going to cost you to walk away from the table? And I really do think that, but for the buyout, I think he'd already be gone.
And unfortunately for Trevor Lawrence, how far does this set him back in his growth if he has a new coordinator, if he has a new offense, if he has a new head coach? We saw it with Baker Mayfield, just went through head coaches and coordinators and offenses and all those sorts of things, and he's lucky he came out on the other end of that. We think he did. He didn't look so good on Sunday. But how far back does this set Trevor Lawrence in his growth if he has to start all over again after this season? So unfortunately, the Jaguars' rebuild is not going very well right now, Mike.
No, it is definitely not, and it's something that we'll keep an eye on, and this is not what Shad Khan was envisioning when he tried to turn the team around. 19 losses in a row, 20 coming, and who knows when the victory is going to come, and who knows who the head coach is going to be when it does. Pittsburgh Steelers looking.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.